So what we decided to do, you can see from the agenda, make sure that people understand this whole issue on the planning and the life safety isn't all about the stadium. So we decided we would talk about the issues that we're facing in this building on east of Golf Road first. So the first item to talk about are the roofs, right? Yep. We're gonna go right down the agenda, and I don't know if you have something you could bring up. Yes?
Can we almost stipulate that we agree that east of Gulf Road makes sense?
No.
We can't stipulate that and move forward?
Because we represent all the district. We don't just represent the neighbors across the street from Hollywood School.
Great.
So the purpose of
Thank
this
you.
meeting is the whole issue. It's not just what the people who show up are concerned about. Okay? But, yeah.
So on the RB website, under the Board of Education tab, there's a 2013 facilities assessment. A lot of the residents during their comments were wondering where the information was, or where's the background information to support some of these decisions and support some of these inquiries. So the first PDF you'll see is the facility assessment. That's 261 pages that the board paid last year. It includes photographs, roof maps, all of our maps, areas that are considered life safety, considered capital improvements, and considered operations and maintenance. The 10-year life safety plan is listed below that. There's been several residents in the area that have contacted me or filed FOIAs in regards to like land surveys or the title searches. So what we are doing as soon as we get those documents, and some of those residents know that we order those things because they're following the board meetings. All of our board meetings are televised. So they're following some of this through the board meetings or attending board meetings. So we recently put up the title searches that were completed as well as the land surveys. So those of you that did file FOIAs for those documents, they're now available online. In regards to the first agenda item, which is roofs, if I take you to the facility assessment, which I already have open, I bookmarked this, but this is the section on roofs. You'll see that there's a detailed plan for the roof section. And we have it color-coded in that chart. And each color represents years. Now, it's hard to see. I have to shrink this down a little bit to get it on my screen. I'll do the best I can to blow it up bigger for the people out there. But this is all available online. But the legend will show you the different colors are 0 to 3, 3 to 7. That's really small. It's hard for me to read in front of you. 10 to 12, and then 12 and beyond. So we have sections of roof, and the costs for fixing these roofs are all in here. But the ones that we would need to address are the ones that need to be addressed in the 0 to 10 lifespan. Now, a majority, if not, with the exception of any of the new additions, new roofs were not put on the existing building. So there was some confusion in the community about how the $66 million was spent, and there was confusion about the roofs. So we had a detailed life safety survey done, and especially an assessment done on all of our roofs. So this is the highlighted map that you can find online, which will tell you how the roofs over the next 20 years need to be replaced. We had some of our newer sections of roof that were leaking already. I know some of your students 2 years ago may have told you that we had a piece of drywall fall in the new entrance. Some of those were still covered under warranty and have recently been repaired. But there are several sections of the roof over the cafeteria, the kitchen, some of the older parts of the building, the AV room that have not been repaired or replaced for several years and are due to be replaced, and this will be accomplished through the life safety survey. We do have, we have filed for a grant every year. The state of Illinois will do a capital maintenance grant, which is about $50,000. They'll match up to $50,000. Sometimes they'll match up to $100,000. So we did receive local matching. And Joel, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to match $50,000. So we already are looking to replace, which our biggest need is probably right over the kitchen and in the cafeteria. That's our first section of roof we're looking to start working on hopefully next spring or summer. Joel, do you want to add any feedback on the roof sections? Joel Hatchie is our director of facilities. He reports directly to me, and he played an integral role in the facility assessment with the architects and engineers.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's, the color coding pretty much says it all, I think. And, you know, there's different repairs that are gonna be required of different roof sections. Some would be total replacement, some would be, you know, other types of repairs. But it's pretty well laid out in the document, I think.
Okay, again, all this is available online. The next agenda item on the east side of campus is the drainage. Another great thing in the 260-page document, there is a list of all these photographs. There's several pages of photograph, and there's a chart before these photographs that will show you things that need to be addressed. Some of these things I wanted to show you today just to address the drainage. You can see these are pictures. I can't click on the individual pictures because these are from the actual PDF, but you can look at these online. You'll see this is our basement area near the weight room and where we have issues with flooding. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit further here. So these are some of our locker rooms in our basement, and when we got that heavy flood, we were continuing to get water into the basement of the high school 10 to 12 days past when the rain stopped. It was like a water fountain was on through cracks in the walls in the basement bathrooms, in the girls' locker room, in their bathroom. So we were continuing to get flooding well past when the rain stopped, when the river crested and started to go down even. We were continuing to get flooding. So one of the things we're looking at through the life safety plan is trying to put some check valves in and see if there's any kind of flood mitigation that we can do so that we're not getting flooding in the school's facilities. Because when we had the big rain, obviously there's not much you can do about that, but we did have to close down all the locker rooms, the wrestling room, the weight room, and those are facilities that are used for gym classes and all of our athletic and activity programs before, during, and after school. The next one is floors. I'm going to skip around here. We have several areas you'll find on the photograph section where we connected, I believe when they did the $66 million project, I was not a part of the administration at that time, and a majority, if not all the board, was not part when some of those decisions were made. But basically, you took a school building and attached it to a new building. So there's areas on the second floor, first floor, where we attached the new science rooms, or there were changes made with the new entrance. So you have two different floors, two different stages of settling. So we have several cracks and different levels of floor where you could actually see that one floor is higher than the other floor, commonly on the VCT tile. You'll also start to see in the field house area outside the main gym where the concession stand is, you'll see several spiraling cracks or spider web type cracks where it's almost like a window when you get a nick on your windshield and eventually it continues to start to spread. We're starting to see that all through areas of the building in our VCT. And Joel, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of that I think Mr. Wass alluded to earlier that's going to be addressed through just our regular operations and maintenance, our typical, upkeep of the building. But there are certain areas where it's a little bit more severe that's going to require a bigger fix. I'd say the majority of it, and I think it's in some of the figures there, though, ends up being stuff that we'll pick up through, just the normal course of our operations, the normal projects that we do over the next 10 years or so.
The next thing is I'll go to a slideshow here. So I understand when the community gets frustrated. One of the things that's tough for me is as an educator to sit up here in front of you as your superintendent, and we receive the $8.9 million from the Capital Development Board, which is for capital improvements or for capital repairs. And a majority of the repairs that you're going to see in this life safety report and facility assessment do deal with a lot of our extracurricular activities. And the reason for that is a lot of this was not addressed in the $66 million project. One of the first things when the board said, we need an update on where we're at with the facilities and the areas that weren't addressed. And when we did this life safety study and we did this facility assessment, I came back to the board and I said, you're going to have people in the community that are going to be concerned because it's going to seem like everything that needs to be fixed, a good chunk of that is related to either extracurriculars or roofs. These are examples from our gym floor that's directly across from the alumni lounge. But we have sections of our gym floor that have peeled up and have we can't find. We've glued down what we can glue down, but these sections of have peeled up, and I'll continue to show you some more. Mike, how do I click? There we go. So we've tried to varnish over them. We've sanded as far down as we can. One of the other things that we've done is when we get some of these sections, you can see that there's not a lot left that we can sand down. The life expectancy of a floor is probably anywhere from 20, depending on how much you spend, to 30 years. It's been long past 30 years since RB's replaced their gymnasium floor. Usually the regular maintenance cycle, and Joel can speak to this, is every 2 years you do a light sanding of the floor, just like you would maybe on a hardwood floor. You don't take off the paint. And then maybe every 5 years you do a thorough sanding where you would grind down, where you would take off the paint, revarnish, and then repaint the floor. We're at a point where we can't sand down our floor anymore because we're starting to get to the underlayment.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, I would defer to the expertise of some of the contractors we've had look at the floor. Just we don't know exactly what the history has been, how often it has been sanded and that, but there's just not that much left. And in the areas where it's damaged, and that's from that particular picture is from where the bleachers roll in and out there. It's those sections, those are really big sections that would need to be replaced. You may not necessarily see them if you attend an athletic event, but during the course of gym, when we're using the entire floor, that's where these kind of come into play.
Now, someone will, to give you an idea, when we talk about fiscal responsibility and fiscal management, and we'll get into this a little bit later with the stadium, but the school has been cited on several occasions that all of our bleachers are out of compliance in regards to handrails, access to the bleachers, ADA compliance, and the overall life expectancy and maintenance of them. And I'm going to skip to something here. But when the floors, something like a gym floor would not be in a life safety item unless it was absolutely a guaranteed tripping hazard, or there was a giant hole that a kid can fall through, or a visitor can fall through, or significantly get hurt. But our bleachers have been deemed a life safety, and they've been deemed that there's an A level, which is something that had to be replaced within a year. A B level is within 2 to 5, and then a C is within the 10 years of the life safety. Our gym bleachers have been deemed a life safety issue, which means within the next 10 years we have to replace our gym bleachers. It would only make sense and only be a smart fiscal decision, as what I've recommended to the board. You need to replace your gym floor. Your gym floor has not been replaced in over 35 years. If you're going to be tearing out the bleachers and installing new bleachers, it makes sense to try to do the floor at the same time. So you're installing a new floor at the same time as you're installing a new bleachers, and you basically clear out the gym and do it the right way. Then instead of installing bleachers and then coming back after the fact and trying to reinstall a new floor and having to remove or set aside your new bleachers. In regards to the bleachers, as you can see here, this will give you a better example. There are no handrails going up except for on both ends. There's no handrails going up the middle. There's no deemed staircases. And the spaces in between the bleachers are past code. They're too large where things can fall through, people can fall through, small children can fall through. And believe me, we find a lot of things after home events or assemblies and stuff where things have fallen through. Somebody might ask, well, why didn't this get addressed in the $66 million project? I do not know. It was not a life safety project that they completed when they did that at the time. So now that it's a life safety identified and we have to do it within 10 years. Why has RB been cited for so many years of being out of compliance with their bleachers and not have to pay any penalty? Because those of you that understand the Illinois school system and school code, I don't think they have enough resources at the State Board of Education to enforce everything that they put on us. So as long as your bleachers were built before the new laws were written or the new ADA laws were written, you're basically grandfathered in. So we've been grandfathered in out of compliance. But now once we've done a life safety issue, we now have to correct those issues. Because our own board members have asked, why didn't we address these before? Or how have we gotten cited? why don't we have to address this immediately? Because the way the school code and some of the laws are written, you're grandfathered in until you do your next life safety, and then you have to address it during your life safety.
Did you know that in advance of
Sir.
doing life?
I'm sorry.
We don't answer questions and there'll be
Great.
other
Thank you so
visitors.
much.
So this is another example, and then you can see here, this is a little better idea, but I don't know if any of you have been to a game where you try to get up into the bleachers with your children or with your spouse or parents, elderly people, but there's nothing to hold on to. So you're kind of almost doing a crawl up the bleachers, or you have, unless you're lucky enough to get up the side where there are the metal rails. I've touched on the gym floors, I touched on the stands. I'd like to touch on the most important, which I'll get back to this here in a minute. Let me escape out of that. We'll address that when we get to west of Gulf Road. So parking. I have a couple slides here, and at the last board meeting, or 2 board meetings ago, I gave a presentation to the board, and I think this will be good for a lot of the residents that are attending here tonight that are maybe new to the area. This is an overhead Google map of the RB campus as well as the zoo. And I have a laser pointer. I'm going to do the best to do with you, but I gave this to the board after I met with the first group of residents from the Hollywood community back in May. As soon as the first drawing went out in the landmark, I met with 6 or 7 members of the Hollywood community. Many of them are here tonight to discuss some of these concerns. And I made a list of all the concerns that those Hollywood residents gave to me, and I brought those back to the board and presented it at a public board meeting. Everything from student safety and traffic flow, green space for community use, drainage, local water collection, life safety versus capital improvements, timelines and expectations, parking lot security and lighting, permeable pavers, and community participation. So I do want to show the community that when you do contact me, I do try my hardest to get back to you. I also make note of that and try to report back to the board of the concerns you share with me. Now, I don't know if the laser will show you. So where the white box is basically RB High School. The baseball field, this parking lot is all property of the Cook County Forest Preserve, and the Chicago Zoological Society is the primary tenant. This is also all the Cook County Forest Preserve, and this is the Chicago Zoological Society South Lot, and they are the primary tenant. This is Rockefeller. RB leases Rockefeller from the city of Brookfield. Brookfield owns the street. We pay $14,000 a year to park cars on Rockefeller. So this is the zoo lot here, which many of you have sent emails to me and questions to me. Why aren't we just using this as a parking lot, or why aren't we building a parking structure on this? That is also the part of the Forest Preserve and also the Cook County, the Chicago Zoological Society overflow lot. The school district pays $18,000 a year annually to use this on school days and whenever, on some special events, when the zoo doesn't have conflicting events to unlock, so they unlock that gate. So when you see the gate, a lot of the calls and concerns the board and I receive as superintendent, or the principals receive, is why is the gate locked? There's nobody in it. Why is the gate locked? It's cold. We don't have a key to that. That is the zoo's lot. That is where they park their cars. And a lot of times what they tell us is they have events or they're not sure on what the attendance is going to be. I have met with the zoo since the day I took over. I think you get more honey from being nice to people than trying to take them on. I have a very good relationship with Stuart Straw, who's the CEO. I work very closely with Matt Mayer, who's the Chicago Zoological Society government relations person. We've worked some things out. We're trying to use the zoo more. I've met with them for the last 2 years in trying to come up with multiple proposals, an A, a B, and a C. The A was to try to come up with an idea of buying land from the Forest Preserve, seeing if there was a way that we could buy the current lot right here, or see if there was a way that we could buy the field space. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to read the statutes that are in the state statutes for the Forest Preserve and the Cook County Forest Preserve District. It's nearly impossible to buy land. Has it happened before? Yes. We've had residents come forward and say, hey, how did the Riverside Golf Club buy their Forest Preserve land? Well, there's a couple things that we need to remember about. Those of you that ever been to Riverside Golf Club or seen the section of land they bought from the Forest Preserve, there's a river and railroad tracks that run right between it. So that little triangle of land was hard for the Forest Preserve to maintain, as well as being across the river, across the Forest Preserve, and it was separated from their existing Forest Preserve. So I think that was why it was easier for the golf course to acquire that land. In this case, the zoo only has land south of 31st. I don't know what the zoo's intentions are, and I tried to talk with them about that, but I don't see them putting exhibits north of 31st Street. So a majority of the land that they own to expand or build new exhibits or to do anything is on the south side of 31st Street, which unfortunately is also where RB's at. So proposal A was trying to buy or acquire land from the zoo to get RV parking here. Nothing yet at this time with the proposed parking lot here by Hollywood School or the tennis courts. When we were told no on that, and these are meetings that we've had with the zoo as well as the superintendent of Cook County Forest Preserve himself. And I did have a board member, Mike Welch, who's on the bike path committee with me, was present at all those meetings. We even went as far as doing a school bus tour with the superintendent from the Cook County Forest Preserve to drive him around to show the ideas of the bike path as well as some of the parking issues we're facing. So we've had him on grounds here a couple times. So proposal B was, this is what they call their gravel lot, and some of you have sent me emails and about this area. So our proposal B, we approached the Cook County Forest Preserve and the Chicago Zoological Society, and you'll see it when you go through the 260 pages online. There's $750,000 put aside that we were willing to try to pave this and fix this for the zoo in exchange for gaining access to this lot. Basically a land swap. We would use those dollars to pave this area, and then in exchange, the money we spent, we would do like a 25 or 30-year lease where we would then have access to this lot. We were told no on that for a couple reasons. One, there are several trees that would have to be cut down here, that the Forest Preserve is against cutting down trees. The second thing is they use this as their storage area where they have several empty canisters or canisters maybe that they use for storage. If you've ever been past there, maybe when you're going in the back or around to the other building, and I forget the name of it at the top of my head, but there's a, what's that? Discovery Center, there's a way around. This is where they have probably 100 or 200 picnic tables. So we were saying to them, you already park your staff there. What if we paved that, cut those trees down, you work to move those canisters and those empty picnic tables, and we try to get the same number of spots you'd be losing here, over here, and then you could still use the baseball field for your overflow. They considered that, and we were told that they are not interested in doing that proposal. That left us with Plan C, which was not our first choice, was only working with the existing land that we own, which is why we were talking about a proposed parking lot. Now, on the east side of the building, and I hung a set of prints up. These are only draft prints, but we did approach the county at these meetings, and we had, where's my documents here? Give me one. Please bear with me. Let me see if I can get. So we had, open that, and I think it's this one.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. Okay, let me get this bigger.
I guess.
All right, Mike, how do I get this to slide over? Because there's no toolbar at the bottom. So the third proposal that we took to the zoo is a lot of times when parents are here and there's no parking and either the gate's locked. I need Mike, I need a menu bar so I can see the rest of the picture. Toolbar on the bottom. Oh, okay, that's the one. I need that little gray box. Anybody know what I'm talking about? That will slide in. I see my technology. That's why I have the technology director. Okay, here we go. So proposal C is twofold, and that's what those drawings show up there. There's a fire lane here. These are the current gates. These are the zoo's gates. That's those big iron gates that you'll see locked at times. Currently, there's a fire lane that runs all along the perimeter of the building, north perimeter of the building. It's a pretty wide fire lane, and at times, when there's no parking and parents are here for concerts, open house, extracurricular activities, parents will park along this fire lane, along this fence. So we went to Cook County and the zoo and the Forest Preserve and said, is there any chance of us getting an easement? Basically from this post to the gate, all the way along the perimeter of the building, basically fence line extended. Those of you that know the girls softball field, when I say that, that's what I mean by fence line extended. And that was the only proposal right now that we have not been told no. So they did gain some lanes. I then presented that same proposal to Commissioner Kowalski. We had several meetings with Commissioner Kowalski. Last week, Tuesday, I met with, we were there for the bike path as well, but there was an agenda item on the agenda for proposal of an easement to the high school, and we met with Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. They told us they would get us information and within the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks if they're interested in giving us an easement. In the event that they gave us an easement, can you go down to page 2?
Is that on First Avenue portion?
No.
Excuse me? No. Was that not on the First Avenue portion?
No,
Where was that at again?
this is the baseball fields right here. So
Okay.
the easement's along the baseball
So
field.
you guys could easily put in the thing going out into First Avenue and put them there.
Great minds think alike. There's a curb cut right here to get on to First Avenue. Now, if you think it's tough working with Cook County, now try adding IDOT to that. But there's future possibilities for that. So if we were in the event where we were able to get the proposed easement, we would put 30 to 40, whatever we can figure, parking spaces. If we were not able to use that First Avenue exit, we would put in a cul-de-sac. This is the proposal I showed the Cook County Board President. We would use this for handicap and visitor parking, which in then turn would mean we would have to do, we would propose maybe doing a smaller parking lot. Mike, slide it over, please. On the Hollywood side. Now, those of you that are against the whole parking lot, I understand it. I have young children myself that are in first grade and one that will be going into kindergarten. I understand it's not a good idea to put a parking lot next to the school. I also understand that you have concerns about flooding and green space. If we're able to pick up these 34 or 40 spaces, I came back to the board and had our architect just do a conceptual drawing, but is there any way that we could build a parking lot or parking spaces in the existing tennis court footprint where the drainage already exists? We would not impact the current green space. We would be able to put up new fencing, which is also already a plan of the life safety, but new fencing, new landscaping, so it wouldn't be an eyesore for the residents. All those concerns about the lighting and those things are things that we can work with the community on. But I want you to see that we are listening to your concerns. When I have meetings with you, I hear that, you know, this would leave a large space of green space, the current green space intact, because we need the current green space. This is where our shot put and discus throw. This is where we still have some practices for some of our other teams. So we are landlocked, and this would be a possible option, so that whatever spaces we can get over here, we would put less spaces over there. So that's one alternative that's still possibly on the table. Mike, if you could slide it back over for a second. When I showed you that slide that talked about the whole softball and baseball fields, it makes life very difficult as a school administrator, or as a principal, or an athletic director to not have any of your facilities on campus. We don't own this. So in my first year, it was about March, it was the March of 2012. We had great weather that spring. I don't know if anybody remembers it. That's when we were hitting the 70s in March. The zoo had one of their best seasons of the year. Next thing you know, I'm in my office at spring break, and I'm getting a tap on the window because parents are coming, they're lining up by my door to complain to me, and I said, what's going on? They're like, we just got kicked off in the middle of our softball game because they're parking cars in left field. So I went to Mary Ann, who's my secretary, I said, what's going on? She says, that happens all the time, you know, we share that with the zoo. That's the zoo's primary overflow lot, so on nice days. So then I went to the athletic director. Well, our scheduling for athletics is done sometimes 2 years in advance when you do 2-year contracts with teams. So you could say, hey, we're playing Elmwood Park on March 16th. If that's a nice day at the zoo, we don't have the field. And we won't know if it's going to be a nice day at the zoo till 9 or 10 o'clock and the cars start lining up on First Avenue and on Forest. So we had to start finding alternative locations to play sports. So after 2 years of dealing with that as a superintendent, I started to contact the local municipalities saying, we need a place to play softball on a consistent basis. We already had moved our varsity baseball team to Elhurst Park. All of our varsity games are played at Elhurst Park. So that's where we came up with an intergovernmental agreement with North Riverside because they had a softball field available and a lower level baseball field available. So we don't even use these fields for any competitions. These are strictly just practice fields. Because in the middle of games, and those of you that have kids gone through here, we'd have to stop competitions and reschedule as if it was a rain out or a lightning problem. And that gets, and especially in the spring, that gets really tough where your days are already limited with weather and darkness. So that's why we had to move people off the field. And that's why we don't play those two sports at home anymore. Several of you have sent in requests about why don't we just go over the green space here. That is against the Forest Preserve policy as well as the state statute. You cannot pave over recreational space. So that's why they park their cars on there, but they don't pave over it. So when some of you have asked about building a parking garage on it, they can't build on recreational space. So that will answer that.
Let me add a couple of things too, Kevin, that was very good, but Mike Welch and I accompanied Kevin to the meeting with, can you hear me? Mike Welch, one of our other board members, and myself accompanied Kevin to the meeting with the Cook County Board President and our representative, Mr. Tobolowski. And I'm going to throw these out there. There's been a lot of questions asked. One thing, you got to remember, we're kind of trying to do the same thing to the zoo that people next door to the school are trying to do to us. We want that green space. We don't want you to change it. And we want to use it for our children. And we're like, we want to use this for the kids. We've been doing it for 50 years. And regardless of what the history is, this Cook County is telling us several things. One is, we're not here to serve Riverside Brookfield High School. That's not our charge, and that's not the zoo's charge. So, okay, we let you use them, but you can't count on that going forward. The second one is a lot of people have asked about parking garage, and I was a little bit involved early on in the last construction, and I was one, why don't we build a parking garage? And I know for a fact there was some discussion there'd be a parking garage, and what they're telling us now is we don't know why anybody ever told you you could build a parking garage there because it's against the rules, and we will never allow it. So again, this is what we're hearing from the Cook County and representatives of Forest Preserve District and the Cook County. So what people have to understand is, particularly Dr. Skinkis has been spending a lot of time trying a lot of different alternatives with us trying to use and share more of that space. And we're basically at this point now where we think they might allow us to pave over a fire lane that we could use for parking along the school building there. And basically being told whether or not we allow that, don't count any more of our space. Because we're not going to, you'll have to wait till the visitors section, okay? So I'm just trying to make sure that people understand, and we've heard other things. There's a parking lot across the street on First Avenue where there's Forest Preserve. We don't know how that serves the school. People have asked before. We'll put it on the list, I guess. I don't know how we would build it in. I don't know how beneficial a parking garage in North Riverside Mall is to use by our school, but we've actually talked about it for graduation, about having parking at a different location and having a shuttle. So we've talked about it, but we just want to make sure people understand. I don't think somebody's come up with an idea on how we could shuffle around the space there that we haven't discussed and we haven't pushed the Cook County and the Forest Preserve District to try to help us with. And we believe we're down to one potential alternative that they're considering. You'll have to wait till the visitors' comments, please. Did you want to say anything about the parking one? I guess I would add one more thing too. You know, sometimes we get hit, you know, we're not being very good neighbors. District 96 and Hollywood come after. We do more investigation, we're finding out. You know, I understand people want to make their positions, but there's parking already at Hollywood School that District 96 owns that the kids have to look at. And we actually provide parking to District 96. Some of the spaces on Rockefeller that this school district pays for, we make them available to District 96 at no charge. So we, you know, when you're saying, why would you put parking, and again, you know, I assume the parking in front of the building, you could have a alarm go off too. Dr. Skink has talked about it. We understand it's not a preference, but we also understand if people are that concerned about it. I mean, my kids went to Hauser, they went to District 90. There's parking outside almost some of the classrooms at all the schools. So we look at what's best for the school and try to come up with solutions that we think we can balance it out. But, you know, we want you to consider that when you're making points like there shouldn't be parking by a school. So please, you know, consider that also, because we do. John, do you want to?
Yeah, I want to emphasize what Kevin had said. We do not own the land just north of here. We never will. It's impossible for us by state statute. You can look it up. I think it's 1917. We cannot buy that land. We cannot condemn the land. We have no access to that land. I mean, actually, the zoo is being very kind to us to let us use it now. They could take it away. Now, so we want to work with the zoo. We want to work with the Forest Preserve District. We want to work with the commissioners to try to get a solution, or at least the best solution we can get given those constraints. There's no perfect solution given the fact that we don't own it. So I think Kevin's done a great job looking at all the alternatives, and when we finally make our decision on what to do, hopefully this plan gives us the capability maybe not to have to pave over that green space and to address all the concerns that you have. And look, going forward, we will listen to what everyone has to say. But like I said, we have to look at the interests of the entire district, of people coming here and parking and being able to use the facilities, and that's what we're going to do.
Do you want to move on to the west side?
Sure.